Hey, today we're gonna talk about why UX is over, why Apple design is over, and why Malewicz is over. Well, sort of. Let's start with UX design. Shopify has announced that they are not calling their designers UX designers or content designers anymore. Everyone is now just a designer. And this makes total sense because with AI tools and with many patterns already well known and established, it really doesn't make sense to split into a narrow category like a UX designer or a UI designer. You're a designer and you should be a generalist, you should be doing all parts of design. It just doesn't make sense anymore to be a narrow specialist. AI had a little bit to contribute to that, but it's not the only factor. We simply now know, because as design goes, digital design of apps and websites, we kind of run ourselves into a corner right now, or maybe that's a corner. And there is very little innovation anymore. We are following Jacob's law and we're trying to design everything in a way that's similar to all that stuff that existed before. So it's not as difficult anymore. There are barely any uncharted territories. There is basically just repeating the same patterns and changing it slightly. And now much stronger focus than on UX is on the actual value of the product and partially on some gimmicky visuals, but we'll talk about those later. And because design is becoming more of a spectrum of things, not a single narrow thing, it's really good to be good across the whole spectrum. I kind of talk about it in my most recent and probably best course I ever did, but of course you can just kind of practice this on your own. Just focus on learning as much as you can from different sources. Okay, now let's talk Apple. Apple has announced their take on glassmorphism, and obviously they had to give it their own silly name, so it's called liquid glass. And it's pretty impressive how we got to a point where a small device that you hold in your hand can render completely fluid transitions with refraction and realistic background blur. I give you that, but yeah, it's completely unreadable. That's one thing. On most backgrounds, it's inconsistent, but there is a deeper problem here, and let me quickly tell you what I think. I believe there is a problem with Apple as a design leading company. They're not that anymore. They used to be that when Steve Jobs was alive and partially before Johnny Ive left. But now Apple is mostly a normie-oriented, consumer-facing company. So it's not really like they say it's for creatives, but it's not really for creatives. It's more like your mom's phone, basically. Henry Ford famously said that if you ask people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And Steve Jobs was one to try to push the envelope. So instead of asking people what they want, you were supposed to predict what people wanted, to give them something that they never imagined before. Because obviously, if before the first iPhone you asked people what they wanted, they would have said something like a keyboard phone with a bigger screen, so like a BlackBerry, and BlackBerry eventually failed. But Apple is not that anymore. And it's not even the glass effect. It started a little bit earlier with letting people customize their phones. Because if you can customize as a user, and most people have absolutely no design sense or sense of aesthetics, you end up with horrible, horrible looking things. And sure, you can, but that way you're diluting the brand, because Apple used to be considered that designer company, kind of like a luxury designer electronics. It's not that anymore because you can customize it to look like shit. And by giving the power to the users, it kind of reminds me of Samsung allowing people to use a font called Choco Cookie for the entire OS. And this is what it looked like. Yeah. I bet this is eventually coming to iOS as well. It started with letting people change the colors of all the icons on the home screen and some other customizations, and now with that glass effect and just kind of going into effects more and more and more, we're getting to a point where there is no design there is no aesthetic. You're taking an iPhone from somebody else and it looks like a completely different phone than yours. So it's basically completely diluting the brand just to make some normie consumers happy. And I think Steve Jobs would never accept that. And it's not even about the readability. That can be fixed. The problem is that it just lost its entire sense. It's not design anymore. This is just Play-Doh that consumers with no sense of taste are shaping and forming to match their uniqueness, because obviously everyone's unique now. Everyone is a creator of some kind. And even if what you create is garbage, it's at least yours and you're entitled to it. But that just destroys the brand. That makes Apple be like everybody else. Everybody else doing market research and asking what the majority of the customers want, and then giving it to them. And that makes sense from a financial perspective. But great design, like the stuff that Dieter Rams used to do, is not made that way. I'm switching to the light phone anyway, and I much prefer this interface to the new glassy, barely visible icons on jarring, colorful backgrounds. Because yeah, this has lost its way. It's gimmicks and personalization just so you feel like you have control over your experience with the phone. Okay, and the last thing, is Malewicz over? I'm not sure about this channel, you know? I've been doing this for many years and I feel like this whole approach is a little bit outdated. So I've been putting 15 to 20 hours into every video, and I feel like that time doesn't fully reflect what I want to do. I think I'll be moving this channel to presenting Square Block case studies, so you can still learn from them because you can see how we approach client projects, real client projects. And I'll focus mostly on that, but if you want commentary episodes like today, let me know in the comments, because I can talk about some stuff with less editing and just share my perspective. If it's valuable to you, then fine, and if it's not, then you can just block me and I can be annoying on my own. But I need to reprioritize, and right now my main priority is a different YouTube channel focused on longevity and other things that are more interesting to me with a design twist. So if you want to follow that channel, I put a link to that in the description. There will be more and more videos from how I use design patterns and design thinking basically to solve problems that are not related to pixels at all. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. It's gonna be a case study probably. Cheers. Oh, and I forgot to tell you one thing. We updated our glassmorphism.com website to allow people to create something similar to the Apple liquid glass effect right now in CSS, then copy the CSS and just use it on your own. Check it out at either liquidglass.io or glassmorphism.com. Bye.